maybe hold 8,000, but only.
I've been a troublemaker, I've been a late-night player, I've been broke as a joke, I've been a money maker, I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator, I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing, popping, lock and stop and let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make a whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk, we gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my Jaeger just a little.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sports Buzz, the Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio. Comcast Cable Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this February 14th.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, I was going to say that day. It seems like that's an important day, something. Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And you already heard the sounds of my right-hand man, Mr. Bob Rod Jr., who is here with his entire family.
Yes.
On Valentine's Day. How did I manage to get you here on that, Bob? Was that planned? Are you thanking me after the show?
Yeah.
And yes, it's another week, another bout of weather, but another week further through winter. I don't know, these ice storms.
Oh, these ice storms, it was terrible. It took me quite a while to chop ice.
I don't know, when was the last time we had these storms where it like literally rains for like 24 hours in the storm? Very crazy, and there's just sheets of ice still everywhere outside, but I guess it's better than shoveling 8 inches, 12 inches of snow.
Actually, I'll tell you what, I'd rather have the snow because the snow wouldn't have been as...
Yeah, I kind of wish we had regular snow too, because I don't know what to do with these ice storms. It's like impossible to do anything. So anyways, we are here. That's Bob Rott Jr., my right-hand man. His show, Spotlight, on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. You can check him out, and of course our old-time, new-time, back-at-it director is here again, Mr. David Suero, locking it down, getting more and more familiar with the controls in there, running the show smoothly. Suero's back. We love it. DJ Malo, El Diablo, Darkness. And he is joined, and I think we even bumped her up in the credits. He was taking care of that right before the show to
yes.
Audio. Off of the production assistant title,
yeah.
Your girl Jenna there
yes.
is getting the higher up the ranks in the end credits, so look for that. Connor and Jolene, of course, here too, but they are hanging out in the green room, just hanging.
Well, we had the big celebration party this weekend for both of them, so.
The dueling birthday party
yes.
Went down on Sunday. I hope that went well.
It did.
Very good. The number here, we are live, 203-792-4101. If you would like to get on the line and give us a call. No Strange Man this week. Maybe he'll call in.
Yes.
He was sending me something about the Beatles. I got a couple things from him. We missed last week's Strange Set, so I have to work that in at some point. He just sent me something about the Beatles, so we might pass on that. Lindsey Vonn, we'll get to that in a little bit. But you wanted to mention something that we didn't mention also that he was upset about last week, the Westerners and the Palace.
Yes, the Westerners on the 3rd of March will be having a dual movie night day.
Right.
Matinee. The first one will start at 1 o'clock, The Rookie, and then the second one will be Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Yes.
Wow.
Free packs
they should
of
have
cards.
played, since Penny Marshall passed away recently, maybe they should have dropped in a league of their own. That would have been
Yeah, that would, yes.
But no, that's great. The Rookie and Field of Dreams, 2 classics, and that's hosted by the Westerners.
Yes.
Over at the Palace Theater. The Palace Theater this weekend, I think it's Sunday all day. If you want to check out all the short films that have been nominated for the Oscars is being screened there on Sunday, which leads me to...
I saw that.
Yeah, which is a great event over there at the Palace. And that leads me to mention next week we will have a special guest on the show. Usually I go on Kevin Gallagher's Time Out with Kevin Gallagher to talk Oscars before the Oscars, but this year He is coming here.
The evil director.
Former evil director Kevin Gallagher will be sitting right next to me right here. And we're going to have a little powwow about the movies and the Oscars this year. That should be fun. So you can tune into that. All right, as I mentioned, 203-792-4101. We know pitchers and catchers reported this week. Spring training will be underway next week. No Bryce Harper, no Manny Machado signings yet.
Yeah, I don't think the Mets will get him, but you never know about
Remember last year, Bob, J.D. Martinez didn't sign with the Red Sox until February 20-something.
Right.
So everybody's acting like this is a total shocker, but
you never know what the Yankees are gonna.
they're still in the running for Machado apparently. But we wanted to mention, because last week, right before the show, the news came in that Frank Robinson had passed away, and we didn't really get a chance to get any information together on that and give him his due. And we were also involved with celebrating the Super Bowl and the Patriots victory. But we did want to mention, at the age of 83, Hall of Famer Frank Robinson passed away last week. And Frank Robinson, of course, great playing career, but also integral in the world of Major League Baseball, because he was the first black manager in the history of Major League Baseball when he was appointed manager of the Cleveland Indians as a player manager.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, in 1975, and he promptly put himself in the two-hole, batted second on opening day as the player manager for the Indians, hit a home run in the first inning, leading the Indians to a victory over the Yankees that day. But because of that, and we'll get to his playing stats, a lot of people think Frank Robinson is top 4, maybe top 3 all-time most important people in the world of baseball. Of course, Babe Ruth for popularizing the sport, making it go mainstream. Jackie Robinson, of course, for breaking the color barrier some 23 years or so before Frank Robinson became manager. And then Curt Flood, who in all sports really, but specifically with baseball, was the player who opened the door to free agency. If it wasn't for Curt Flood's stance, breaking the ties that basically had players being owned by the teams that drafted them forever. And he fought for the right to become a free agent, and he eventually did. And he opened the door to free agency as we know it in sports now. So those 4 players, Frank Robinson included, a lot of people would say 4 most important players of all time. Frank Robinson, now, when he retired, Bob, was 4th on the all-time home run list.
He's like 10th now, right?
10th now. 586 home runs behind Aaron, Ruth, and Mays.
Yes.
Pretty good company right there. Only player ever to win the MVP in both leagues.
And the Triple Crown, too.
And the Triple Crown, right after he was traded by the Reds. 1961, he won the MVP for the Reds. And they traded him as he turned 30. When it turned out to be one of the most lopsided trades ever, to the Baltimore Orioles. And the Orioles credit that trade for him coming over and teaching them how to win, because he had already won with the Reds. And also Pete Rose said he taught him a lot, because Pete Rose joined the Reds a year after Frank Robinson won the MVP in 61. In 66, he led the O's to their first ever World Series championship, won the Triple Crown that year.
He did.
And of course, Mets fans will remember
1969
when you beat those Orioles. Yes.
But it's set in 7 beautiful games.
Right. He did win won in 1970 with the Orioles as well. You know, he just an incredible career for him. He won the Rookie of the Year in 1956. Tied a record for most home runs by a first-year player with 38 home runs that year in 1956 as Rookie of the Year.
Right.
In 12-time All-Star. And actually, let's see, 1966 when the Orioles won, they beat the Dodgers, but he also paid back the Reds winning in 1970 with the Orioles, beating the Reds. He was a 12-time All-Star, played for 21 years. The Reds, the Orioles, and the Indians all retired his number He ended up managing the Indians, the Giants, the Orioles, the Expos, and was the first ever manager of the Washington Nationals.
Yes.
So that wasn't that long ago when
No.
they went back to Washington, had a successful little run to start their franchise there. He played high school baseball in Texas with the all-time great Bill Russell.
Yes.
Very interesting. Only player ever to hit the ball out of the old Baltimore Stadium, Memorial Stadium. He
Yes.
did it off of Louis Tion.
Yeah.
Incredible. Played in 5 World Series. Hit a home run in every single one of those World Series. Hit a home run against the Dodgers in Game 1 against Don Drysdale in a 1-0 victory to set the tone in that 66 World Series, leading them to victory. Bob Gibson, the all-time great pitcher, no love for any hitters usually. He did say, however, as a rule, I'm reluctant to express admiration for hitters, but I make an exception for Frank Robinson. The Bullet, Bob Gibson. Frank Robinson, of course, was a tough guy too. He been hit by a pitch, I think, 198 times.
Yes, he did.
Gibson also said he was the best at turning his anger into production. If you tried to, brush him back or beaned him, he would come up and make you pay the next time. One of the best at doing that. He also had over 200 stolen bases. He ran the bases with abandon. He said that he controlled the base passes and they were his, and he would never was afraid of taking anybody out at second base on a slide or at the plate as well.
I'll tell you, I met him back in the mid-'80s.
A guy that everybody said was a great guy.
He was
very likable.
He's very, very well spoken, very nice. You go up and get, to talk to. He was very, between him and Brooks Robinson, that was a pair,
Right. Well, they said, as important as he is, there was at times he was the third most important, popular or most important Robinson, because he had Brooks and of course Jackie Robinson and Frank. So sometimes because of his name, he gets overlooked in history. And of course, later in the years of baseball with the steroid era and the numbers, people passing him on the list, that also diminishes somewhat. But I think now we look back and we start to realize what some of those guys did in those eras, because that was also a pitching-dominated era.
It was. If you had Gibson on the mound, you didn't want to face him.
No, not at all. Not just ask the Red Sox, who lost to Gibson.
Oh yeah.
Who also hit a home run in Game 7, as well as shutting them out in the World Series against them. So yeah, Bob Gibson, one of the all-time greats. Frank Robinson as well. All right, speaking of other athletes, and this time of the modern era, stepping away from the sport, Lindsey Vonn. We don't often get into skiing and all that, but this was the strange stat of the week. Lindsey Vonn wins a bronze in her final race ever as she finally hangs it up at the age of 34. She becomes the oldest skier to take home a medal in a world championship. And she finishes behind only the Swedish star Ingemar Stenmark. 86 victories for Stenmark, 82 for Lindsey Vonn, one of the all-time greats, and also looked good in a bikini in a couple of SI issues, as we see right there.
Have that up.
I opted not to bring in the body painting photos, but we did get her in the in the bikini. So 5 days after she went down in a wreck, Bob, could you imagine fracturing a rib and then going back up the mountain and bringing home a bronze in a Super G?
Wow.
In Sweden just this past week at the age of, and she's, surgically repaired both knees. She's broken every bone in her body practically. 3 Olympic medals. First, and so that came full circle as well, because her first medals ever came at the Worlds in 2007.
Right.
And those were silvers. And the first female to win medals at 6 World Championships. So just a great career for Lindsey Vonn. Strange Man did point that out, so I figured I would make mention of that. And let's get to his strange stat of the week from last week, which we missed. The strange stat of the week from the Super Bowl: Tom Brady, on the anniversary of the day the music died,
Yes.
won the Super Bowl. Not sure how it all ties together, but it is worth mentioning Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens, 62 years later. I believe it was 62 years, right?
Yes.
What a horrific day in the history of music, as those three legends went down in a horrific plane crash, which was a very sad day indeed. All right, speaking of some stuff that took place not in America, but overseas, Champions League was back in action, the round of 16. There's been that long break since the group stage ended, and it got underway this week. Some pretty good games, some surprising action. Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, on the road at Manchester United, took down the Red Army 2-0. Big blow to Man U in that game in the first leg. Tottenham, for American soccer fans, took out Borussia Dortmund, which is a big blow because Dortmund has Christian Pulisic, the American wonder kid, playing for them. And I don't know if you saw this, Bob, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, he became the first American player to draw a big transfer fee.
Yeah, I did. I saw that.
He will be heading, I think it's to Chelsea.
Yeah, I think it's
One
Chelsea.
of the big British Premier League teams is bringing him over at the end of the season. I was happy that they're waiting until the end of the season because Borussia Dortmund is in first place in the Bundesliga, and I'd like to see them try to finish that off and win that.
Right.
But they are down now 3-0 to Tottenham, and Tottenham did that without two of their best players. Harry Kane didn't even play in this game. Big blow for them. In the other two games that took place, Roma, my team from Italy, took out Porta, and Real Madrid took out Ajax. This week, continued action: Liverpool versus Bayern, Lyon versus Barcelona, FC Schalke versus Man City, and Atletico Madrid versus Juventus. So keep your eye on that stuff as the Champions League gets back underway, and that will start heating up quick in the round of 16 here as they get down to it and cut it to 8 pretty quick. College basketball, Bob. So things have gotten a little worse for UConn since we haven't really talked much about them.
It's every year, every week it just gets like.
Well, I was happy at least that Coach Hurley didn't say what he's been saying recently, that the kids played hard and it was kind of a moral victory after the loss this week to Memphis when they went down 78-71. He said there are no moral victories. This school has a history of winning championships. That's what we're about, and that's what we're trying to get back to. So there's no such thing as good losses. They are playing shorthanded as their top player, Jalen Adams, went out with injury in that loss to, I forget who they lost that game to the other week. Maybe it was in the Temple game. Yeah, in the Temple game right there, we see it. And it was unfortunate because he got benched in the game before that they won against ECU, I believe. He sat out the final 17 minutes of that game, and he clearly was trying to prove something as he came back in a little bit too fired up. And the Temple player came down and fell on him awkwardly. He's out for the rest of the year.
Right.
And they have their other kid who redshirted the last, I think, 2 years in a row with injury, is out as well. And he had been playing well. So now they're shorthanded. They fall to 13-11. 9th place in the AAC at 4-7 tonight. They play at 7 o'clock, so as soon as we're done, you can flip over to another station there and see them take on the only ranked team in the AAC, Houston, at 23-1.
Right.
They knocked off Cincinnati, who was ranked 25 this past weekend, so Cincinnati fell back out of the top 25. So Houston cracks the top 10 for the first time since the Phi Slamma Jamma days of 83 and 84.
That's a
with the
long
Hakeem, the Dream
span.
Shake, Elijah and Clyde the Glide Drexel, and all those other guys, Benny Anders, and that great team, which never won a championship, but certainly got a lot of people interested in the Final Four, as they made it 4 years in a row. So that's pretty interesting to see Houston back in the top 10 for the first time. Top number one team in all the land still remains Tennessee. Duke pulls down number 2. Gonzaga, Virginia. I mean, Virginia just lost twice to Duke, yet they're still top 5.
Don't get me started. 'Cause
Kentucky, Michigan lost again recently. They're still 6. Nevada, North Carolina's fallen to 19-5. They're coming down at number 8. And then Houston.
So don't ask me how they work this. It doesn't make sense, but this is how it comes out.
I mean, teams lose and they stay in, and you know the AAC can't get anybody in. I don't even talk about Colorado State anymore because, you know, the year like 3 years ago they had their best season ever.
Right.
Like 26-7, and they didn't make it in because Michigan State at 17-13 had to get in.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what to, you know, I'm down on college sports as a whole, and that's the reason why. It's a joke. But, and also I did try to tune in. I watched like the last 10 minutes of a Duke game recently.
Right.
I wanted to see this kid Zion Williams, who everybody's talking about. The slobber fest that goes on. I mean, they didn't speak 1 second about the game.
No.
The whole thing was them talking about him, Dickie V.
Yeah.
He's a PT player. Oh, he's a high riser, baby. Diaper dandy.
Yeah.
But I mean, could you talk about the game a little bit?
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
we don't care about the game. We just talk about one player. Yeah.
3-4 years ago, they were saying the same thing about Jahlil Okafor.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's already been traded from the Sixers. He's
Right.
been that big a bust. So, but they all think this kid Zion's the real deal, and nobody talks about anything else but him. But that's college sports for you. That's all they got to do. All right, let's get into some NBA action. Or maybe we'll make a mention right now, quick, before we go to the pros. We'll talk about high school locally.
Yes.
We were going to mention it last week, but we missed it. Jackie DiNardo, been coaching over at Danbury. Is that the phone ringing?
I hear the phone ringing. It's the phone ringing.
Let's see. We are live and on the air. Do we have somebody calling in?
Yes, is this Kevin Gallagher?
Oh, the evil director.
Is this Kevin Gallagher?
Yeah, is that him?
No, Kevin Gallagher will be appearing on this show next week as a guest.
Tell Scott Uncle Buck's on the line.
Uncle Buck. All right, Uncle Buck, you are live and on the air.
Hey, thank you.
And this is Scott. Good to hear from you, Uncle Buck. It's
Yeah,
been
we
a
haven't heard
while.
from him in a long time.
How's your buddy there, the tall man? How's he behaving?
He's behaving. We're happy that we have our other buddy, David Suero, back directing, which gets Bob out of the director's chair and back with me in the studio, so he gets to talk. So we're all here.
David's good. He's a sharp guy.
Yeah, we're
But
happy.
anyway, before you go off, there's two things that one major thing I want to talk about
Okay.
is the brackets in the girls' college basketball. They're thinking about whether they'd like to pair up the teams, distance-wise. If they're close to one another, they'd rather have that than fly, to the West Coast.
Yes, they do a lot of these pod seedings where
Yes.
they keep them in regions and do that sort of thing.
And the other thing I want to talk about is the refereeing in the pro sports, the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can't they use the video to make the decision? Can't the referees caucus together and use the videotape to see the call? And what I'll do is I'll hang up because I want to hear you speak. Okay?
All right. Hey, Uncle Buck, thanks for calling in. Great to hear from you. Nice to hear from Uncle Buck.
Yes.
It's been a little while. Sounds good.
Well, the NFL has had.
Well, we had a lot of issues with the NFL. I mean, there's been some discussions about whether or not they will expand the replay. The pass interference call is the one that's the biggest deal.
Right.
And even some of these roughing the passer calls, those are not under review. Penalties basically are not under review, but they're
I mean,
talking
if it's under,
about maybe
if it gets
it's
to a certain
time.
time in the football game, they will. But
I mean, they drag these games out long enough anyways at this
Right.
point. They're well past 3 hours. They used to come in under 3 hours. Now they all go 3.5 hours. Anyways, and you'd like to see it get done right. I know the Saints fans certainly would like
yes.
a redo on what happened in their game. I think the NFL has gone too far. I've talked about it all season with the catch rule. Now they're making it so you don't have to make a catch. I think they've gone beyond what it was the last few years where people were crying that catches were being called catches. I mean, I think they should, scale it back and make you have to hold on to the football. But the referees are, I think when replay came in referees had that big brother looking over their shoulder, and they're not as sharp anymore because they
Right.
think that they can all go to the review,
Right.
and none of them get the calls right, and then they don't know what the rules are because the rules are changing. So that's a tough one. The pod thing, and they do it kind of in the men's game as well, where you could get seeded out into the Western bracket, but you're going to play locally in the Northeast.
Right.
If say you're Syracuse or something
Right.
like that. I don't think that's actually all that great for a competitive balance. I think, if you didn't have a good enough season to get a high seed and keep you in your region and you got shipped out, you should go out to that region and play those first 2 rounds out there. After that point, then it becomes where you are in that region that you are bracketed into, and then you're playing out west or south
they did.
or whatever like that. So, and it's also worth noting the Huskies have lost 2 games, the Lady Huskies this
Yes.
year. So, and it's been a couple years since they won a championship. So the Lady Huskies, we'll see if they can get it done. NBA, and we were going to mention Jackie DiNardo, Danbury girls head coach, won 500.
Yep.
And I see Bethel Girls has won 8 in a row to get in, and the SWC playoffs are going to be starting this week. So high school basketball playoffs getting underway soon. As we somehow are down to 2 minutes. So
We're going
we didn't
out.
get to the NBA. Maybe I didn't want to talk about the Celtics losing to the Lakers last week, and what a joke that was. A fiasco that almost made me vomit all over my house as I watched Rajon Rondo and Bron celebrate like they won an NBA Finals championship. What a pathetic display that was. The Lakers, who are now 3-7 in their last 10, below 500, 10th seed in the West, so they're not even in the playoffs. And yet they win this game where the Celtics somehow let them set a team record by hitting 22 3-point shots in that game. Brutal seeing the Celtics blow an 18-point lead in that game and a 26-point lead in the next game to the Clippers and old friend Doc Rivers. How about this for a strange stat, Bob? They set these schedules well in advance, right? And somehow they made rivalry week where it was Boston versus LA in basketball, Clippers and Lakers.
Right.
Boston versus LA in hockey versus the Kings. And somehow that coincided with the Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams playing in the Super Bowl. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah.
The Islanders still in first place at 72 points, and the Metro Bruins still in third place in the Atlantic with 72 points. So if they were in the Metro, they'd be in first place.
So does that mean the Dodgers and the Red Sox will be World Series for next year?
Interesting how that happened, Bob. Lakers, Celtics, Lakers, Clippers, Kings, Bruins, and the Patriots and Rams.
We're live next week,
just
right?
by chance. Live next week. Kevin Gallagher will be here, and we will talk about the movies and put sports aside. We'll take an all-star break ourselves with the NBA after they got 8 days off. All right, we'll see you then. Stay tuned, and thanks for tuning in.
She's that dream of my desire. She's the one fueling the fire. I see her standing there wanting lust fills the air. I feel hesitant, but waiting just ain't part of my master plan. Do you feel the heat now, baby? Show me that you can. Want you to want to, 'cause opportunity just won't wait. Want you to want to now. Want you to want to, 'cause opportunity just won't wait. Want you to want to a heavy